Hello, hello. So I'm going to explain to you the buttons that are most important on your camera and how to put your lens off and on, all the little nitty-gritty important things that you need to know so that way you can troubleshoot whenever you are outside shooting in manual. These are just important things that you should know before you just go outside with this black thing in your hand. So let's dive on in. I'm going to show you all the things quick and simply. Okay, hey Canon users, so this is a Canon 70D. You may have a more basic Canon camera or you may have a more advanced one, but I'm going to show you where to find the most important settings on this camera are, so that way you can just get used to finding them, so that way you can figure out where it is on your camera. It may not be exactly like this, but this will be helpful. First things first, make sure your camera is in manual mode, so go ahead and push down on the toggle and move this around so that way you can put it in manual mode. Obviously, turn your camera on. This is where you're going to see your settings up here at the top, and this is probably what you will look at most often whenever you are on the go and taking pictures. But to see them on the back of the screen for just the help of this video, you're going to press on the Q or press halfway down on your shutter, and that's going to give you this as well. So you can see that you are in manual mode, and you can also probably press on your screen. You can see that you are in manual mode. This right here is your shutter speed. So to manipulate your shutter speed, you are going to move the toggle on the front right side with your pointer finger on your right hand. You can see that going up and down right here. So just make sure you can distinguish this number from this number. This number, the f1.8, is your aperture. That's very important that you know that is your aperture for whenever you are adjusting it. And then lastly, your ISO. So your shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO are the most important settings that you want to make sure you know what they are. They are what you're going to be adjusting most often than not. So your ISO is right here. You're going to click on the Q and then move the toggle around right here and go up to the ISO and click set, and then you can move your ISO and select it. You can also hold down this button up here on the top where it says ISO and then move the toggle this way. There are two different ways of doing it. Whenever you are on the go and taking pictures, you are most likely going to push down this ISO and then adjust it, okay? That's going to be the quickest. So note that this is where your settings are here. Other important things to note on the screen are the AWB. That means you are in auto white balance, which is where we want to be. I'll explain more about that later. You are in RAW, which is also important and what you want to make sure you are in. So that is where you will adjust your RAW settings here. And going back to our menu here. Next, you want to make sure that you can see the viewfinder. Whenever you look through your viewfinder, you're going to see these red dots. Those are going to essentially be what you're telling your camera to focus on. So you want to be able to move those dots back and forth. But first, you want to make sure that you have those dots. So look through and press halfway down on your shutter and make sure that you see those dots. You can turn them on right here, manual selection 1, and then you can manually select where you want those dots to be, okay? You essentially want them to be in the center. That's where you're going to have your strongest points, but this is going to help you right here. So when you're looking through your lens, you're going to press halfway down and then move back and forth your viewpoints while you're looking through to focus on your subject. That is also important for you to note. A further look at your settings would be to press on the menu and then you can scroll through this way. So here on one of the cameras you have your image quality. That's just another way where you can view to make sure that you are in RAW. And then whenever you go to the right, you'll find your white balance adjustment here. You can also adjust your white balance here. Keep going to the right and you can just see other options that I'm not telling you that you need to focus on. And then keep going to the wrench and you'll see format card. This is important because you want to format your memory cards every time you put a new memory card into your camera, but you don't want to format a memory card or essentially erase it is what you're doing if you haven't already uploaded those images to a safe place. So it's important to know because it's good taking care of your memory cards this way, just to make sure that there's less chance for corruption, but you don't want to format them on accident, so be sure you know where this is. You want to make sure that your images are safe. And then going over to the right, you can see some more settings that I'm not going to tell you that you have to know. And then also please note that your zooming in and out are right here. So whenever you take an image, if you want to make sure that it's actually in focus, you'll zoom in on their eyes if it's a person to make sure it's in focus. Obviously, you can delete down here, single images at a time. Okay, so we're almost wrapping it up here. I'm going to explain a little bit further into those focusing to autofocusing. So the AF up here, whenever you press on it, you can manipulate the type of focus that you're telling your camera to do. So we're going to focus on, in this video, one shot and AI Servo. So whenever it's in one shot, you're essentially telling your camera, hey, my subject is staying put. They are not moving. So don't worry about it. Don't overwork. They're not moving. So you're telling your camera that, so that way you can take pictures of them and have the best chance of them being in focus. Now, you're going to press it again and tell it to go to AI Servo if you want to tell your camera, hey, this is a bride and groom, they're getting married. Well, you probably won't tell them that, but if they've just kissed and they're about to walk down the aisle towards you, you're telling your camera, hey, my subject is going to be moving, so can you do your best job continuously focusing on them, so that way I can get them in focus. Please note that you do, as you're taking pictures of your couple walking towards you and your camera is continuously focusing, you do need to keep halfway pressing down on your shutter, so that way it is also in your favor, continuously focusing. So that's important. That's a little more advanced. So if that was a little over your head, just start in one shot and you're good. Whenever you're confident, come back and re-listen to that. You can add that to your bag of tricks. Lastly, I'm going to show you how to take your lens off and on. So this button here, you're going to press it halfway down and then turn your lens, and then you'll feel it release. Now to put it back on, you're going to line up this red dot with the red dot on your camera, and you're going to line it up. You're going to kind of feel it fit in that groove, and then turn it to the left. You'll feel it click. Okay, so kind of practice doing that. Make sure that you feel comfortable doing that. Don't ever be too rough with it. You want to be careful, and also try to make sure that you are not around wind or dust or dirt whenever you're doing this, because you really don't want dust or dirt getting onto your sensor. So even have your camera pointed down if you can. And lastly, to wrap it up, this AF and this MF should always be AF on your lens. Please note, look at your lens. This is the number one thing that you can troubleshoot if you are taking pictures and your photos are out of focus. If they're blurry, you don't know why, check this and make sure that you haven't accidentally knocked it to where it goes to manual mode, because that would mean that you're telling your camera you want to be focusing it like this each and every shot, which would be totally meticulous, and you do not have to do that. So make sure your lens is in AF and you are good to go. And yes, to be confusing, hopefully not confusing, your lens is in AF, but your camera is in manual. Okay, you want focus of all the controls on your camera in manual mode, but you want your lens on auto. All right, you got this. Okay. Do you feel confident? You totally should. You have all the tools that you need. So now that you know where your ISO, your aperture, and your shutter speed are, those are the most important things. The other things are kind of boring to know, but they're good to note and have access to and be aware of in your camera, on your camera, so that way whenever you're out, like I said, you're going to be confident and know how to troubleshoot. Feel free to refer back to this video if you ever are confused or forget which toggle is shutter speed or aperture. This is kind of the meat and potatoes to make sure that you go out confidently. So I believe in you. I promise you've got this. So let's go ahead and jump into the rest of the capture course and continue to learn more about ISO, aperture, and shutter speed and how they create exposure. So let's do this.